I was like, why not Camaro?
One day, just around the track. Yeah.
That's just one thing.
I learned to drive. I think I was 15. So, like a traditional trajectory of learning how to drive. It was my stepdad that taught me how to drive. I remember this. It was in a Jeep YJ. And he
Nice.
pulls over in a parking lot. And he's like, all right, dude, get in the driver's seat. And it's a manual transmission car. And
Oh boy.
I don't know what I'm doing. He's like, figure it out. I'm like, okay.
No time to explain. Get in.
Dude, kill it. 300,000 times later, I think we moved 30 feet just of me like killing the car and the car rolling with momentum. Chris, who's the person that taught you how to drive?
So it was both my mom and dad. More of my dad. He's the one who takes charge and tells me, okay, let's go. We're going to learn. And I remember driving home from a lake. We went fishing, and I forget how old I was, but I was not very old. And my dad goes, hey, get in the driver's seat. I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, you're going to drive home. And I mean, we weren't far, but we we're also like, 10 minutes away. And I've never done anything like this before. Minus, I guess, in the parking lot, I'd like go and drive around in circles and park and stuff. And I was super nervous. And he was like, okay, well, there's nothing to be nervous about. And I remember we're driving down the dirt road, and he's like, look out. And I jam on the brakes. He's like, see, look, you're fine. And I drove home, and I was good. I was worried about the cops every 5 seconds, but it was all good. There was never, I guess, I mean, he's watching what I'm doing, and he knows, like, I've driven boats. I've driven $500,000 boats at that point, friends' boats and stuff, and never had any issues. I had my boater's license before I got my driver's license. So what's, driving a car, he's watching me, everything's going fine, not many people on the road, it's all good. And I got home safely, and I was like, I don't like driving. And that was like my first main experience, but I mean, after that, it was, I guess, a lot of just practice. I didn't do the conventional way of where you go to driving school. My dad and mom taught me everything, and we wrote down how many hours I drove and the different types of driving I did. So did I do highway driving, or did I do city driving? Did I park? Did I parallel park? Did I get gas? And then, so we tried to knock everything out and make sure I had enough experience before I actually got my driver's license, which I think was good. I remember driving back home from Disney. Everybody was sleeping in the car. I had my permit, and we're on 95. And you know how 95 is, going back north. And these tractor trailers are buzzing by me by like 95 miles an hour. And I was like, I don't know what to do. I just have my permit. Do I go faster than 65? That's the speed limit. But everybody's flying past me. I'm like, everybody's sleeping. What do I do? I'm just like, I'll just stay with traffic, And that's when I started making my own decisions and learning. And so that's kind of how I learned how to drive, almost like hard knock style,
On mom and dad's checklist for you, was drifting on that checklist by chance?
It was not. And I don't think they ever really liked the idea of me drifting, because I remember the first time they came out, they were nervous. They were like, be careful, your helmet's on, right? Like your seatbelt, don't roll it over. They were super cautious. Even now, my dad's good. My mom freaks out, but at this point, it's all good, But yeah, that was never
That is mom's job to worry about you. Ben, what about you?
Yeah, so it's actually funny that Chris, again, he mentioned something that made me think. It's like logging your hours. Like, I didn't go to driving school either, but like my school had it where it was like, you need to get a certain number of hours to like get your permit or whatever. And so like my mom taught me how to like just drive a car, and we would like log hours. And it's like hilarious to me to think about logging hours of driving and like having to be like, oh man, I need to like get more. Like, I need to intentionally go out and like get more hours of driving, because like now I could fill up a logbook in like 1 week of just going to the parts store, going to Advance to like get whatever part it is that I forgot that I needed.
I need a screw. I need more JB Weld. I need more vice grips.
Yeah, exactly, right. Yeah, those are the only 3 things that I actually buy at Advance. Yeah, so my mom taught me how to drive like an automatic, because she doesn't know how to drive stick, and then my dad taught me on that 94 Legacy that I was talking about, how to drive stick shift. And it was like I am probably the dumbest adult, and like at the time was probably the dumbest 16-year-old, because like I could not figure out how to drive stick shift for like so long. I could get that car to just like buck for like it was on hydraulics. Like it would just buck it all the way down the street, like never out of the friction zone, just like the car's rocking back and forth. And my dad was like, I don't know how you're doing this. Like I don't even understand. Like I understand how a manual transmission works. I understand like every working part of a car, and I don't think that this is physically supposed to be able to happen. It just took me forever to learn how to drive stick shift, but I finally like I can kind of drive it now, so that's good.
Did you understand how a clutch and everything worked? Like, was that something you understood at that point?
No, yeah, I had no idea. Yeah, they were just pedals and stuff. You know what I mean? Like
I feel like that's super important. That helps so much.
Like,
it does, yeah.
Like, you know, he would tell me like, okay, so now you know, like the transmission is like engaging to the engine and stuff like that, and like now it's under load and stuff. But like that makes sense to me hypothetically, but like realistically, that I don't know what any of these parts look like or anything like that, so it didn't really mean anything to me.
Gotcha.
Freddie, who taught you how to drive?
So this implies that I have a driver's license. Turns out people will sell you cars and they don't ask questions. No, so I was taught primarily by my dad. He had an '03 Mitsubishi Montero, and I used to drive to and from my retail job. I used to work at this outlet store called Daffy's. I don't know if you guys had them, but I would drive home, and he was a little bit, I would say, like, I wouldn't say nervous, but he was more anxious, like, because we lived in a very densely populated city. So people would just walk out into the street. There'd be cars that stop short, stuff like that. But, you know, we eventually got to the point where I could drive myself no problem. And then I think I drove stick for the first time from my friend's like 93 Honda Civic DX, which is interesting because that car has like no power. And I'm not sure if you want to learn on a car that has no power because you have to give it way more gas, because you can't just let the clutch out. It's just going to stall. So when you get into any other car, then you start like, you give it way more gas than it needs and you end up riding the clutch and people look at you funny. And yeah, it's so weird. But I think getting an idea, like what Chris said, learning how the engine and transmission and the clutch system work, that helped me out so much because it's like, okay, the engine is spinning. The transmission's not spinning, it's stationary. You have to make sure that now the spinning engine and the stationary transmission, they can mesh together in a way where it's smooth and it doesn't jerk. And if you do it too fast, then the engine will stop spinning. So that really helped me out when I was trying to learn.
Love it. And I'm going to guess that Mitsubishi Montero, you said, was the car that sparked your passion in the automotive industry, car world, that really fueled your Lamborghini. Is that a Lamborghini? Sorry, I can barely see it in the background.
That's two. That's two. One on top of the other. That's the Lamborghini section of my garage. It's okay.
Okay. I have a Lamborghini Hot Wheels section over on the other side of my office.
Yeah. You know what? I have a Lamborghini Hot Wheels somewhere too. I'll find it later. But it's
while Freddie looks for his Lamborghini Hot Wheels. Chris, what was the car? I like that Chris has got his at the ready. Ben, where's your car toys? I don't have any of mine on my desk right now.
I have they're all upstairs. I have the Evo 7 from Fast and the Furious 2. But I like how he managed to make it 33 minutes into the chat before we started talking about his Lamborghinis.
Yes. It's called progress, my friend, okay?
Yeah, the American dream.
Baby steps.
Talking about progress.
We're doing good. We're doing good. Chris, what was the car that really kicked off your passion? I think you might have mentioned it earlier that it was Dad and his love for Corvettes and your just kind of response to not loving the Corvette, so it was the Camaro. Was it the Camaro that fueled that love, or was it the Corvette, or was it the H1 Hummer? What was it?
Yeah, it was my dad. It wasn't even a car. It was like, it
That's
wasn't,
cool.
Like I said, the Camaro, I didn't even really know what it looked like. I just knew it was another car that was a sports car and it could compete against the Corvette. So I'm like, yeah, that's my favorite, you know? but I'd say what really got me into cars, what like it was like the tipping point was we were looking for like a Mustang or a Chrysler Crossfire or something for my first car. I did really well in school. I got scholarship for college. I got into college. Dude, all good things. My parents said that if I could do, they would help me get my first car. And so we're looking for, I really wanted a Chrysler Crossfire because I thought it was, cool and unique, and the spoiler would pop up, and I'm a loser like that. So, but we were looking and we're driving down the road, and my dad sees a black Corvette, and he's like, "It's in our budget. We should check it out." I'm like, No, that's your favorite car, Dad. I really like the Crossfire or a Mustang. And he's like, "Well, let's just check it out." I'm like, "Okay." So we get in the car, and the salesman comes up. He's like, "You guys want to test drive it?" And my dad's like, yeah. Yes. So he gives us the keys. We go out for a ride. Some guy cuts us off. My dad, in typical New York fashion, gets around him. Our car gets sideways because he gives it gas like he was driving the minivan. Our car gets sideways as we're going around this guy. And I'm like, "This is amazing."
Picturing Chris with his head out and hands out the window like, yeah! That's right.
Basically. So then we're, doing the normal test drive. We're checking everything out because actually, now I'm seriously interested because it's something I've never felt before. And that excitement and smile I put on our face. So we get to a parking lot at a giant baseball stadium. So it's a huge open parking lot. Nobody was there. And my dad stops the car. We get out. We look at it. We, do our circles. Everything we need to test down. He's like, "Okay, let's floor it." And I've never, ever have been in a car of this caliber. So when he floored it, it was back in the seat, instant smile on both of our faces. And I was like, "Okay, this is the car." Sold, We get back to the dealership, smiles on our faces. The guy, the salesman's like, "Well, looks like you guys had a good time." And unfortunately brought up the history report, and it was in an accident and stuff. But eventually I realized how a car could just, it's more than point A to point B. It could actually give you an emotion. And then that's how I ended up getting the 96 Corvette I have as my first car. And really pushing me into realizing cars are more just a thing. It was something that gave me this emotion that I've never felt before. So
I love it. You still have that car today, right?
I never plan on getting rid of it. I hope I can keep it forever, but yep.
I love that. Ben, what about you? Do you still have your first car?
No, we definitely don't.
That's I'm super jealous of you, Chris, that you still have your first car. That's so cool.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, if other Ben was on here, he could talk about how he still has his Escort and he's done all this work to it and stuff like that. But that Subaru that I had, I think it was there was a bad bearing or something like that. So my dad wanted to fix it. So we don't pull the engine or anything. We just pull the oil pan off and do the bearing in the driveway. And I'm like, "Is this good?" And he was like, "Oh, this is great." So,
I love that dad is just confident and just knows this is going to work. It's going to be awesome. Nothing's going to go wrong. That's
not even a question.
I love it.
Yeah, I think he likes working on cars more than he does driving them. So if it breaks, that's great because it's just an excuse to keep working on it. So we're literally the first test drive, we're driving down the highway in our town, and there is a pinging noise as the oil pan falls off and a bearing just comes out and just skitters down the highway, and just literally just pulled it into a junkyard and never saw it again.
This is your home now, Subaru.
Yeah,
you live here.
"Hey, Dad, what happened to that Subaru?" And he was like, "Oh, I just parked it in a junkyard."
The junkyard wasn't even open. He just parked it. And
you even do that? That's awesome.
Anybody? Yeah, that's my dad 100%. He just parks cars in places. Yeah.
I love that. I really, really love that. That is super cool. Freddie, what about you?
As far as my first car?
Sure. Let's have it. I'm guessing it's one that you have back there. You still have your first car too, right?
Unfortunately, my friend, it is not. So it was a 1998 Nissan Maxima. And
that generation of Maxima is outstanding of a vehicle. The 3.5 is one of the best engines Nissan and anybody else has really ever made. Love the styling, cool car, top to bottom. You get my approval for some reason. That's important.
Well, a good first car.
Yeah, it's not bad. So I thought that I was the fastest. Like my car was the fastest car that had ever been made at that point because it had a V6. Well, that was a 3.0 back in the day. So it had 190 horsepower, 205 foot-pounds of torque. To get into the 200s, that's a big deal, my friend. So I ended up doing a manual swap. I ended up doing a 3.5 swap from an 04 Maxima and did a lot of work for the Maxima forums. But eventually, like, I got rid of that car because I just had too many cars. Like, it's still a thing.
Freddie with the flex, man. I love it. Do you regret getting rid of that car? Do you wish you still had it?
Yeah, I wish I still had it. So I've been looking for, if I can find that car. The problem is they made so many of them, and I'm pretty sure that car has been junked. So what I'm going to try to do is I might do a build of getting a car just like that and then trying to make it the fastest Maxima in the world because as far as quarter mile time. So the fastest Maxima was, I believe, it ran a 10.8 in the quarter.
Wow.
And that was set like 11 years ago. So nobody has beaten that record since. And I feel like with today's technology, like you can do that pretty easily, especially with that power plant. So, that's sort of my dream goal. Like I know I have like these cars are cool and everything, but like my heart lies with those cars, like the really cool little sleepers that, they don't look fast, but they're also not actually fast, but you think they're fast,
So, Freddie,
do you have the VIN number of that car?
What was that?
Do you have the VIN number?
I wish I did. So I was trying to find it, maybe through old records and stuff. I don't have the VIN number. I'll try to go back to my parents' place in Jersey and see if maybe I have some paperwork on it. But it was just kind of a thing that was like lost to time. If I did, then I can try to find something.
Yeah.
So do you think you said the fastest quarter mile time for that Nissan was set like 10 or 11 years ago? Do you think that it's because like that platform is maxed, no pun intended, maxed out? Or is it like nobody tried after that? They're just like, whatever, it's a Maxima. We're going to move on to something else.
It's like going to the moon. You go there a few times, like, all right, we'll just cross that off the list. We don't have to do that again. I think it's like I think the platform kind of dried up after a while because people didn't want to spend $10,000 on a car that cost them $1,000. But people have been doing that with Civics.
People don't want to do that?
No, I know. It's crazy. It's insane.
I can't even wrap my mind around that. That's like my life. Are you kidding?
Exactly. But I think that now it's gotten so cheap and affordable, not affordable, but like it's gotten attainable for a lot of people to do like a standalone or like a turbo or a nitrous system where you have all these parameters that the engine the parameters that you need for the ECU to compensate for different things in the engine. So back then, you didn't have any of that. You didn't have timing control. You didn't have a way to make sure the engine doesn't explode. You didn't have cylinder deactivation. You didn't have any of that. So you were just flying by the seat of your pants. And if your engine made it, then good for you. If it didn't, well, you have to find a way to get to work on Monday morning,
And that is one of the beautiful things about modern cars is that the tunability factor is insane. It used to be to write new software to an ECM. You opened up the ECM, you desoldered a chip, you wrote the software on a new chip, you resoldered the chip, and you got 4 horsepower. Now, on the fly with a laptop and a dongle, you get 60 horsepower. I think I got like 47 wheel horsepower on my Golf R just on software, no hard parts at all. So I totally get it. Like, why would you waste the time to pull the ECM and do all this crazy stuff for 3 horsepower when a modern car for $600 or under $1,000, you're getting a 20% horsepower increase. It makes no sense to deal with the old.
It's interesting because like back then, the talk was always we are in the final days of horsepower. Then it's going to be choked up with emissions. then you're going to get really small engines. You're not going to have any power. But now, I mean, you have emissions, you have crazy amounts of power, you have high boost, you have direct injection, you have like compression ratios that are seriously high, and they can still run just regular pump gas. You have E85, which was unheard of. Back then, you had to run race gas, which was like $10 a gallon. You couldn't afford that. So it's like it's easier than ever to make power and modify cars. But you know, there are some of these platforms that are just forgotten about. You know, the Mazda like MX-6, that was a really good platform. The KLZE. You have, you know, Ford Probes, you have Maximas, you have older Sentras, you have stuff like that the community's kind of died down. But right now, if you give all those, you give the like modern resources to those platforms, I think you can get something really, really cool.
I thought about the Ford Probe like a week ago for some random reason.
It's an awesome car.
And then it was fleeting, and a friend of mine had one in high school, and just weirdly thought about it. So that actually makes for a good question. Freddie mentioned you did all kinds of cool mods, manual swap to your first car. You said you had a daughter, right?
Yes.
Are you going to be okay when your daughter's like, Dad, time to do a turbo and manual swap in my whatever as her first car when she's, what, 11, I'm going to guess?
Yeah, so an 11-year-old tells me, hey, I need a turbo on my I need 2
say
bottles
no
of
to
NOS,
that.
big ones, right? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'll be fine with whatever, as long as it's not anything that, you know, is going to put her in danger. There's a shop across the street from me, and he has his kids helping out, and he's building cars for them. But he's also, you know, he builds high horsepower cars, and he's like, I'm not about to put, you know, 500 horsepower in a car that I'm giving to my team. So there has to be like a learning curve. Like first, we could put a turbo on it, but you get 6 PSI, all right? Let's see if you can handle 6. Then we'll go up to 10, right? Then we'll just, you know, after that, we'll put a boost controller on it, and then we'll start cranking it a little bit. You know, maybe, you know, if your grades go up, then you can hit boost cut.
What an amazing reward for good grades. We'll up the horsepower of your car when your report card comes home with straight A's.
I like
That's awesome.
Straight A's get 30 PSI. That's right.
Hey, I need to find a way to get some straight A's, because sign me up for that one. Chris, what happened that first time when you started talking to your dad about modifying cars? What did he say? Was he like, dude, you're nuts, or like, let's do it, mod it up?
Yeah, so I have like 2 first cars. Like my first car that we got from me was the Corvette. But like the first car that I learned to drive on was a 92 Caddy DeVille. And that's what I learned to fix cars on. That's what I learned to drive on. And I was allowed to do like simple things. Like I put ambient lighting in, and it was okay to do that. So like when you open the doors, the floor would glow blue, like a blue cloud. And I loved it. It was so cool. Put a speaker system in, you know, so it sounded good. I did stuff like that, and then maintenance. But once I got the Vet, it was kind of agreed that, well, I didn't really agree, but it was agreed that it was going to stay stock. You know, I really wanted an exhaust so bad, but my dad's all about keeping things stock, and I respected that. He got me the car, and, you know, I should be thankful for that. And the car is cool enough as it is, you know. But eventually, when I started getting my own cars and buying my own stuff, like the Mustang, first thing I did was like, yeah, exhaust. That's going to happen immediately. And that was okay. It doesn't matter now. But we still have an agreement that the Corvette stays stock. So
the Corvette's still stock today as it sits now. That's
it will
cool.
always be.
I am very surprised that your first video wasn't like, here's how to hide a hidden nitrous system in your Corvette.
My dad watches my videos, so that didn't work out too well.
Ben, how long after you've purchased a car, like what's the shortest amount of time you've waited from buying a car to then modifying it?
Man, I'm trying to think.
Are we talking days? Mine's been like hours.
You mean you guys don't
after
buy
buying the car,
before you buy the car?
which is, I think that's reasonable, right? A few hours.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know. Like, I'm not like, I like to modify cars slowly. And it used to be because I didn't have any money, and now it's because I like to kind of like see the difference that every individual mod makes.
I love that.
Yeah,
I'm going to just stop you right there because I 100% agree. I see people just, let's order all the parts and we put all the parts on at one time. And I just think to myself, like, how are you experiencing what a sway bar does versus tires versus lowering the car versus a tune versus an exhaust? Like, enjoy each modification individually. And then that helps educate you on what you really want from the car and which piece of the puzzle you want to improve. So bravo to you, sir, because I love that. And I try to do the same thing. However, I'm not always successful at it.
it's really just an excuse for me not having any money still as an adult.
But the first way sounds way better. Stick with that one.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. Like I got my Evo like back in like 2014, and it took me until literally this year to like do any kind of like really significant work to it. I bought a 350Z and I didn't want to really do too much to it, and then like the exhaust literally sheared in half, so I had to get a titanium exhaust for it.
Have to.
Yeah. I don't like. Yeah.
They don't make the regular ones.
They don't make them anymore. All they make is titanium. New. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not probably. I think you with the like a couple of hours until you modify something is crazier than kind of my philosophy. Like I'm not usually like super gung ho on like immediately modifying stuff. But like I like to do like general maintenance stuff to just like as soon as I buy it, like just do a little change and that kind of stuff to make sure that it's because I have no idea what the last owner did, and I just assumed that they were a complete moron like me. So